YouTube, I am Letitia. I am with Letty on socials. We are going to be going over everything that I read in February. I read 8 books. I read some sports romance, a contemporary romance, a lit fic, a high fantasy, and a non-fiction. I read a very wide scope of genres sometimes. They can be all over the place and it might not make a lot of sense. This is the second time that I've tried recording this video. I recorded like the whole video holding a microphone. It wasn't plugged in, but just so I had something to do with my hands because I didn't want to just be like awkwardly sitting here like, yes, this is everything that I read in February. Because I can't hold the books because they're all on my Kindle or listen to them on audiobooks. I didn't read any physical books this month. Let's get into this week's episode. Okay, first video was The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. Now, if you don't know what this series but you're familiar with Elle Kennedy's work, she wrote the very famous hockey romances. She's what I would classify as an OG hockey romance. It was like The Deal, The Chase, the Byra You series. This new series that she's slowly releasing, I think the first 2 books are out and the third's coming out soon, are the children from the original series. I could be wrong, but the female main character for The Graham Effect is Gigi Graham. It's very weird to read about because it feels like came out in like 2010, but now here we are like 15 years later and we're reading about his child in a smutty hockey romance. It felt a bit weird, but I finished it. I rated it 2.75 stars. Yeah, it just didn't really do it for me. I think I just couldn't get over the fact that it was his literal child who was like, I think she's like 21, 22 kind of in this. So pretty much the premise of this book is that she is a professional hockey player and she needs some help, some assistance behind the net with her technical game. And the male main character is very, very good in that area. He's going to teach her some stuff, but then he also needs her help to get into her father's good books for this thing that's going to progress his career. The first half of the book was great, loved it, and then kind of slowly there's no plot and it's just the characters hanging out and doing hockey romance things. It loses all plot, and I like a little bit of depth in my romance. I like some realness, which you wouldn't think based off of my reading and what books I read. But that was that, 2.75 stars. The next book was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Ashley Poston, I'm obsessed with her writing. I am absolutely obsessed. If you haven't read anything of hers before, her most recent 3 books, I don't know if she's only written the 3, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I've read all of them and they've all got some sort of like magical realism to them. So there's some sort of magical element to all of her books. I've really, really enjoyed it. It's either something that comes from inside of them or something happens to them. So The Dead Romantics, which I believe is the first one she's come out with. Female main character is a ghostwriter of a romance for a romance author. And she has just had a tragic breakup and now she doesn't believe that love is real, love exists, it's all fake, it's all this. She's gone in to go see her editor, who is this really, really hot guy who's new into the role. She's asked for an extension and he says, no, you've had enough extensions. We need this book now. And then pretty much a day later or like later that day, she finds out that her beloved father has tragically passed away. So she has to go back to her small hometown. And then this is where the magical element comes into the story, is that our female main character, Florence Day, can see ghosts. And then suddenly her hot new editor is standing in front of her in her small town as a ghost, and they kind of have to go about this whole situation because he has no idea why he's there, and she obviously has no idea why he's there. They kind of have to go through this together and figure it all out, and I loved it. Ashley Poston writes romance in such a unique and special and realistic way. Like, the problems feel legit and not made up for, like, as a subplot just because they have to. Like, the problems are real and legitimate, and Ashley Poston can write about grief in a really beautiful but realistic way as well. It's a couple of elements in her books. So she talks about like a tragic passing of someone in the family. Happened a couple of times, and I loved it. This was a 5-star read for me. One of my favorite books for the year. Next book I read was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I reread Harry Potter maybe once every like 2 years, so I'm currently going through my reread. Look, it's a 4-star read for me. All Harry Potter books besides Prisoner of Azkaban are 4-star reads. Prisoner of Azkaban is a 5-star read for me. I just love it. I reread it every couple of years. If you don't know what happens in Order of the Phoenix, I'm sorry. Go watch the movies, go read the book. The next book I read was Faebound by Sahara El-Fatir. I'm so sorry. I'm going to put her book, the name, up on the screen. This was my high fantasy book for the month. This was the first fantasy book that I read after Onyx Storm, and it had enough elements that was similar, but like 85% of it was very, very different. So Faebound follows these 2 elven sisters who have just found themselves in these Fae lands surrounded by Fae that they all thought were extinct. Fae meant to have died 1,000 years beforehand. I think it's 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 years beforehand, but no, they're still alive and well. So they are kind of going through that and figuring out their new life and what's happening and all of these changes, and they're trying to get back to the elven lands because there's this war and there's a love interest back there, and I ate it up. I listened to it on audiobook. I wanted to take it slowly because there was a lot of information. If you've read high fantasy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of information and world building and all of the lore that goes into the background of it all. I wanted to go through it slowly, but I just wanted to know more. The plot twist at the end, you know. I am also like very proud of my timing with reading this book, because when I started it, I knew it was the start of a series, but I didn't know that the next book was about to come out. I think it comes out in only like a few days, like very early March. So I'm very, very glad that I read it when I did, because I didn't have to wait too long for the second book. And I think it's a duology. I could be wrong, but very, very good. My next book was What You Were Looking For Is in the Library. This was a 5-star read for me, probably one of my favorite books for the year so far. I'm going to remember this book for a very long time. I cannot stop thinking about this. It's a collection of short stories, all based around what people's recommendations are by the librarian for this particular library. They all find themselves at this library looking for something and getting something else, and they are able to solve their world problems, their problems, based off of the recommendation that they received. It's just beautiful. And they all come from all very different walks of life. They're all there for very different reasons, and it's just so wholesome, but like has so much depth, and it really made me think about life and just, the connectiveness of everyone, and it's just really, really beautiful. I really need to read more like this. I thoroughly enjoyed it. 5 stars, no notes. Next was Ruby Spencer's Whiskey Year, which is a contemporary romance, and it's this ex-food writer who lived in New York City. She just packs up her whole life, sells everything, and moves to Scotland, a small town in Scotland, and it's just everything that you would expect. She goes over there to have a year off to write her cookbook. It's very, very wholesome, very, very fluffy kind of romance. Not a lot of depth, very, very surface level. It was 3 stars. and it wasn't higher because, like, in the conflict, she mentioned some red flags that the male main character has, and then just kind of just brushes them away, and it doesn't really get solved. I mean, I still recommend if you just want a really light, fluffy, light-hearted contemporary romance, I'd still read it. But will I read it again? Probably not. Next was The Comeback by Rebecca Genshark, which is the third book in the Holland Brothers series. They are all sports romances. Not a 5-star series for me, but this one was my favorite out of all of them because I just really liked how the characters came together and they had some depth to them. The male main character is deaf, and they really talk about his experience with it and how people have, you know, adapted for him or people haven't adapted for him. And I think it's just really wholesome how his football team get around him. It is a sports romance, and yeah, it's just really wholesome. So it's a brother's best friend. I rated it 3 stars. And I think that's just because it's wholesome, but it's just not a 5-star. Not a 5-star series for me. Or a 4-star series, apparently. And the 8th and final book for February was The Year of Less by Kate Flounders. It's talking about how she went on a shopping ban and how she gave away, I think she got up to like 70% of her belongings as like a single woman in her late 20s. It was my only non-fiction book for the month, and I'm trying to read 10 non-fictions this year. If you want a how-to guide for a shopping ban or, you know, getting rid of your belongings, this is not the book for you. If you want like a memoir that really talks about, you know, life experiences and why people have shopping addictions, then definitely give this a read. It was really interesting. I listened to it in a day. It really talks about her life and her experiences and what led her to that moment and how she was able to, you know, have so much stuff that she was able to get rid of 70%. And it really made me think about my own shopping habits and why I spend money. And because of this book, I'm going on a 3-month shopping ban, so we'll see how I go with that. And personal finances is something that I'm like really truly interested in. If you've watched my TikTok, then you know I often share about my budget and how I'm going with that and spending and all of that. So just a very relevant topic for me. So it was quite interesting. I really enjoyed it. Why don't YouTubers just never like discuss about how tiring it is talking to a camera for about 18 minutes straight? That was exhausting. That is the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any recommendations for me on what I should read based off of my reviews, please let me know. I'll be very interested to hear what you think I should read. If you have any other video suggestions for me, I'm thinking we do like a 24-hour readathon. Some other videos that you'll probably be seeing for me is like personal life stuff, like lifestyle stuff, some vlogs. I talk about money and finances a lot on my TikTok, so that will all come over to here. If you have anything else that you want to see, let me know.